659-323. Say a text versus Linial Martinez. I'm sorry, Miguel Linial Martinez. Mr. Martinez, are you on?
Sí, la escucho.
Thank you. Would you raise your right hand? Well, I'm sorry. Where's our interpreter? Cesar Chavez. Mr. Chavez, would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that in this proceeding, you will accurately translate from English to Spanish and Spanish to English. Thank you. You may put your hand down, Mr. Chavez. Would you have Mr. Martinez raise his hand? Mr. Martinez, do you solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Sí, lo juro.
Thank you. Mr. Chavez, are you fluent in English? Then why are we using an interpreter if you're fluent in English? I'm sorry, I apologize. Mr. Martinez, are you fluent in English?
No.
Okay, do you read and write English?
No.
All right. For the record, we're having the services of interpreter Mr. Cesar Chavez. Mr. Martinez, would you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the information and responses you submit will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Sí, lo juro.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Mr. Martinez, before we proceed, it is my understanding that you wish to enter a plea based on a plea bargain that you and your attorney have made with the state's attorney. Before we do that, I need to explain certain rights and protections that you have. The first one being that you have the right to remain silent. That means you do not have to make any kind of statement. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to submit paperwork in this proceeding that has your signature, especially papers that admit or confess to wrongdoing. You understand you have that right?
Sí.
In addition, you have the right to a jury trial. That means that you do not have to, pardon me, that means that if you decide to go to trial, an actual trial, you and your attorney with participation by the state would select 6 jurors from a panel of disinterested citizens who would hear all the evidence, see the witnesses, and any other materials that would be submitted under the direction of the court. And those 6 people would decide whether you've been found, whether you're not guilty or whether you have been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt. That's called the right to a jury trial. You also have the right to confront witnesses. What that means is, if you decide to go to trial, the state will submit evidence or try to submit evidence by submitting witnesses. You and your attorney would have the right to cross-examine, question, or challenge any witness. That's called the right of confrontation. You have the right to appeal, after everything is completed in this proceeding, you would have the right to demand, either you, your attorney, or the two of you together, would have the right to demand that a higher court review the official record in this proceeding and any evidence, and demand that they, or the higher court, answer or respond to legal objections that you would be making. That's called the right to appeal. Now, I caution you, the right to appeal has to be carefully done because you have time limitations and you have to submit certain papers with certain information in order to correctly do an appeal. That's the right to appeal. You have the right to demand that this proceeding be held in the open public courtroom. Because of the COVID pandemic, we're not doing that. But if you wish to continue with this proceeding, you would have to review and sign a document titled Defendant's Consent to Video Conference. That is, you will do as we are doing by computer, by facing each other by video conference. These rights I have discussed with you. Did you understand that you have these rights?
Sí, entiendo.
And you understand that essentially you're going to be giving up all these rights in order to proceed with your plea bargain in this matter.
Sí, así es.
Now, in order to proceed, it was necessary for you to review and sign documents that are part of this proceeding. Did you have the assistance and the guidance of your attorney in reviewing and signing the papers that are in this proceeding?
Sí,
The first one we've mentioned already, where you consented, and by the way, the state has the same right, that is to consent or to object and demand a open public hearing in the public courtroom. Did you see and understand that you signed a document saying that you were willing to do this by video conference?
sí,
Also, there's a document that all these documents, by the way, on the document at the very beginning, it identifies you by name, case number, and court number. The other documents that I wish to discuss include one that identifies you and is titled Defendant Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Courts Admonitions. I have verbally discussed these with you. Now, in this document that I just mentioned, you have been reminded and told in writing that you have constitutional rights and protections that you're giving up by proceeding with your plea. Did you understand those documents?
sí, sí entendí.
That document in particular includes telling you in about 14 different paragraphs or sections, it talks about specific things of importance. One of them tells you that whatever deal you make with the state, I as a judge am not bound by it. In fact, I have the authority and the responsibility to say yes or no to your deal, to your plea bargain. I also have the authority and responsibility to assess a punishment for whatever offense you plead to. Even if I give you a punishment within a proper range for the offense, but nonetheless greater than what you agreed to. If I reject your plea bargain, your deal, or if I give you a punishment greater than what you agreed to, then the law would allow you to start all over again, and nothing that you've said or anything you've signed would be used against you. Did you see that in that document that I'm referring to? Defendant's waiver of constitutional rights and court's admonitions.
Sí,
All right. Also, there's a document that's titled Trial Court's Certification of Defendant's Right of Appeal. I mentioned to you momentarily that there is such a thing as the right of appeal. However, I also now inform you that because you're participating in a plea bargain, you're giving up the right of appeal. Do you understand that?
sí, entiendo.
All right. Now, you were charged with driving while intoxicated with an open container of alcohol in your possession. Do you understand what you're charged with?
Sí, entiendo.
All right. State, does the state have a motion?
Yes, Your Honor, the state would move to waive and abandon the open container enhancement and proceed solely on a DWI first.
No objections, Your Honor.
Mr. Barrera, you make no objection. Specifically, that means, Mr. Chavez, that because there is no objection, I am granting that motion. And that means that the enhancement, which raises the punishment factor, in this case is now dropped. You are now charged with DWI, misdemeanor B alone with no enhancements. That motion is granted. To that charge, Mr. Martinez, how do you plead?
No me opongo.
A no contest plea in this court is considered the same as a guilty plea. And based on that, I can convict you. Do you understand that?
Sí, entiendo.
All right. State, what kind of probation will there be in this matter?
Your Honor, this is for deferred
It's what?
probation.
All right. Mr. Martinez, you have pled no contest. The court finds that there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, but I do not find you guilty. Instead, I will approve momentarily the agreement that you made on the recommendation of the state on punishment. How many months are we going to grant deferred state?
12, Your Honor.
12 months deferred. Mr. Martinez, I grant you 12 months deferred adjudication. Now, before I go further, deferred adjudication is community supervision, meaning that you do not go to jail unless you violate the deferred adjudication community supervision. Another way to put that is that you must live up to 100%, every bit of the conditions of supervision. The conditions of supervision will be read to you. You will sign them. You will have a copy in your hands. Nonetheless, you will be placed under supervision for 12 months. If you fail or refuse to comply with 100% of the conditions of supervision, then the state may ask me to give you notice and bring you in for a hearing. If that happens, if I am satisfied that the evidence supports it, I can and will submit a conviction against you, which will follow you the rest of your life. On the other side, if you live up to 100% of the conditions of supervision, then I will dismiss the case, and under Texas law, you do not have a conviction of the charge to which you're about you have pled. Now you've entered a plea to DWI misdemeanor B. State what is the rest of the punishment that you're recommending.
$500 fine plus court costs, 48 hours community service, DWI education, victim impact panel, TAP evaluation, and ignition interlock for 6 months.
Mr. Martinez, are you a U.S. citizen?
No.
Mr. Barrera,
Yes, Judge.
have the requirements of Padilla versus Kentucky been met by Mr. Martinez, or you and Mr. Martinez?
Yes, Your Honor. My client has an immigration attorney that he hired by the name of Garcia and Ramirez, which is a San Antonio firm, and they gave him advice and counseling on the potential consequences of this plea deal in regard to immigration.
Slow down, because
Oh,
Mr. Chavez has to interpret all that.
okay.
All right. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Barrera, finish up.
Yes, Judge. And he had the ability to be counseled by an immigration attorney, and they notified him that, or gave him the potential consequences to immigration, to his immigration status by accepting a plea deal today.
Mr. Martinez, are you satisfied that you are fully informed regarding what consequences exist concerning your involvement in the plea in this matter?
Sí.
And for the record, I'm referring specifically to consequences to your immigration status and or deportability.
Sí, entiendo.
Very good. Now, how do you make a living, sir?
Construcción.
All right. And where do you work?
Es en diferente, o sea, compañía, para una compañía. Para un contratista y
All
para
right.
una
For
compañía que...
example. All right, give me some names. Who do you work for?
La compañía se llama KB Home.
KB Homes. All right.
Sí.
Who else? Who else?
El patrón. Sí, doy el nombre de mi contratista.
Yes, sir.
Sí, es Josué Leos.
Anybody else that you regularly work for?
Es nada más, tengo tiempo ahí con el mismo lugar, el mismo trabajo.
Okay. And now, do you have children you support?
Sí,
How many? Minor children.
son 2, 3.
How old are they?
Juanito tiene 6, Evelyn 4 y Daniela
Son Juanito,
6.
6, 4 y 1.
All right. And what is the total income that you regularly make?
Pues alrededor de 700 semanales, alrededor de $3,000.
All right. I approve the agreement that's been reached on punishment. You're granted 12 months deferred adjudication. You are fined $700 plus court costs. You will do 48 hours community service restitution. You will complete a DWI education program, the Victim Impact Panel program. You will submit to a TAP evaluation, and the circumstances, or rather the recommendations, will be subject to my approval. You will have ignition interlock installed in your vehicle for 6 continuous months. Now, first of all, during the 12 months, the entire 12 months of deferred adjudication, you're not to drink any alcohol at all, especially in the holidays. In addition, for the 6 months that you have ignition interlock, you're not to drive any other vehicle other than yours that has the ignition interlock. Is that clear?
Sí,
Your supervisory fee will be $29 a month. You have any questions, Mr. Martinez?
no, estoy.
Mr. Ibarra, any questions? Pardon me, Mr. Barrera.
No, not a question, Judge, but my client would like to make a donation in lieu of the community service hours.
All right. I approve donation in lieu of community service hours at a rate of $10 an hour. My preference is that he donates to the Gabriel Project. However, he has an option to donate to San Antonio Food Bank. That's his choice, but he knows my preference.
Understood, Judge, and that's it for me.
Mr. Martinez, you have gotten a really good deal from the work of Mr. Barrera. Don't disappoint him. Don't disappoint yourself, but more importantly, don't disappoint this judge. Because if you violate the conditions of supervision, I will have you come back here if the state asks, and we'll go over the situation. And if you violated the conditions and I'm satisfied that it's the right thing to do, I can give you a final conviction under Texas law and give you a punishment of a fine from $0 to $2,000 and jail from 0 to 180 days. Is that very clear?
Sí, está claro.
All right. Good luck to you. All of you have a good Thanksgiving. Be blessed, be well, and be safe. I think we don't have anything else, Patty? This
That's
morning,
right.
or this afternoon?
That's correct, Judge.
All right.
But, Your Honor, Mr. Martinez needs to stay to speak to Ms. Luna.
Yes, I'm sorry. 2 things, Mr. Martinez. 1, you must wait and speak to Ms. Maricela Luna, who will get you started on the probation program. And number 2, you need to come in within 7 days and sign, have your thumbprint placed on the